the world. And so our grant and Pulpit Plus Exchange helps to prepare ordained and clergy leaders in a variety of contexts, in nonprofit organizations, in a variety of denominations, both faith and non-faith institutions. And so tonight's conversation is going to be something that will help everyone to find hope. It's important. The next voice that you're going to hear is our dean, our new dean, officially as of Thursday last week, Dean Kathy Kelsey.
Thank you. I have the great pleasure of working with some of the world's best faculty members, and Dr. April Mack is one of them. She is Assistant Professor of Religion and Social Justice and the Faculty Director of the Master of Social Justice and Ethics degree here at Iliff. I know Dr. Mack, first of all, for the multiple ways that her teaching inspires and challenges the students in her classrooms. These are not easy courses. Religion and post-colonial discourse, framing justice, public policy and the American colonial project, God, religion, and violence, ethical analysis and advocacy. That's just this year's courses. And the titles don't tell you how she uses analysis of film and other popular culture to help students learn to both theoretically and practically assess the worlds in which we live and the worlds we hope to change. Dr. Mack is a published author. Her work has sit up and take notice kinds of titles, such as I Can't Breathe, Neo-Colonial Geotrauma and Violence in the Age of Trump. That was written 4 years ago. And Womanist Ethics as a Contribution to Bioethics. Just a heads up for those of you who aren't yet students, Dr. Mack is teaching a 5-week course this summer entitled Public Policy, Design, Intersectionality, and Praxis, and it will be open to community auditors, so watch for information about that. Her title for this evening, Finding Hope, may sound too lovely for the weeks we have been living through since late January. I'm looking forward to the subtext. Historical and contemporary markers in the complex experience of African American life in America, so that we can grapple with strategies for collective flourishing and social justice. Dr. Mack, help us see and recognize paths that foster hope, resilience, and meaningful change. God knows that is what we are seeking together tonight.
All right, so, oh good, I have, so, good evening. I am at home, so I'm gonna act like I'm home, okay? It's so good to see so many faces, and I won't get emotional, but many of my students are here, and it means a lot. Thank you. Former students, current students, students in the program that I direct, but other Iliff and students and also doctoral students. If you don't know, I am an alum of the joint doctoral program between Iliff School of Theology and the University of Denver. So this is where I've received my doctorate. And that becomes really good to know when I say this space means a lot to me. I used to have a carrel up here. That's where you like store your books and study when it was still part of the library. And so the space is home, and I'm gonna act like I'm home. And I say that as someone who did not think that I would ever return as faculty. It just was never a thought, I can tell you. There is so much divine orchestration of my path, you need to know. You'll hear me say certain things that just weren't a thought once upon a time. I'm a first-generation college graduate, and you see I have 4 degrees. Don't do that. Some part of me that, well, come see me. I will mention, can you just turn that down a little thing? But as someone who dreamed of getting a PhD since the age of 18, it was a long road. All right, let's just say I was figuring it out most of the time. And I say that as someone who also came to Iliff in 2012 with 2 children as a single parent. I think they were 2 and 8 at the time, and I'm gonna just point to the youngest child in the back who's now 15. And she is part of my hope and my journey, but yeah, it was never a thought post-doctorate. Like, I just was like, I just want to get the degree. God, I just want to get like, that was the focus. It was just like achieving this goal. And so there's some part of like, wow, on this side of it. That's just me still taking it all in. I want you to know that. So yeah, there are 4 degrees. I went to Syracuse, go Orange, undergrad. It was a long time ago, I'll date myself, but in 1988, they won the Big East Championship, so you need to go Orange. And I was so excited to go to Syracuse undergrad. Then I went back to school in my 30s, I think that was at 30, and received a MPA, it's called, but a Master's of Public Administration. And that was at a school that's in Washington, D.C. called American University. My thought was that was going to be the master's that led me to the doctorate. It wasn't. And I used to talk to my professors in that school, and I used to say, but what happens when, and I had all these questions, what happens when a public servant, I had worked already for the government, I'll talk some about, this is like 3rd career, but certainly at that time I was like very interested in questions that I didn't know were ethical questions. What happens when a public servant or a government administrator interjects their belief system or their religion into their job? A lot of stuff of that happening now, right? So some of this is very timely. But I started there in oh God, I'm dating myself. I was in the 90s, right? But these questions that I kept asking, and the faculty there was like, but we just don't do that. Like, it was like, we don't do that. You're getting an MPA. You're asking questions about religion. You're asking questions about society in ways. You saw I was under Justice Law Society, but it wasn't quite a good fit for these questions that I kept posing to my professors. Well, after time and much thought, I was like, I think I need another degree. I was like, no, I didn't need another degree, but that's what ended up happening. I went to Emory, which is in Georgia, if you don't know that one. In Emory, I did a Master's of Theological Studies, and I started in MDiv. So let me say that for those of you who do know there's hope. If you're not in the right place, it will show itself. And same thing, I'm asking different kinds of questions to my MDiv folks, my same faculty were like, you might want to talk to the people over at MTS, right? That'll let you kind of do Masters of Theological Studies, which is eventually what I get. But same thing, I'm asking different kinds of questions than how do you be a practitioner in the church, getting a Master's of Divinity. Some of this makes sense to the students, but meaning I switched degrees. I went from the MDiv program to the Masters of Theological Studies, which is a different headspace. It just is. It's the academic degree for religion on a master's level. And that's going to be important in a minute. And then this idea that I just wanted the doctorate, I wanted doctor, not out of vanity as much as when I went to Syracuse, I didn't have people who looked like me teaching African American studies. I just didn't. I didn't have people who looked like me in women's studies either, and I stayed there a lot. So I was like, there's just something wrong here. Is it just that people get to teach about people they're not necessarily a part of? Questions like that. So I've been doing, keep asking these questions over a period of time. So then one day I read a book. I was working at Howard University School of Divinity. Shout out to my Howard folks if they're online. And Dr. Alton Pollard, who was my professor at Emory, over Black Church Studies and a couple of other things, became an incredible mentor. And he became the dean of Howard School of Divinity at that time. And he asked me to come work for him to actually do something very different, which was start a or resurrect a grants department for the school. So I ended up in theological education by way of being a grants manager for a school kind of like Iliff. So that's kind of, and every time I was writing the grant, we wrote a Lilly grant for $1 million, but I couldn't work on the grant because I was staff and not faculty. This is Howard rules, not Dr. Mack's rules. And I was like, Dean Pollard, I gotta go. And he's like, what's going on? I was like, you think I'm great, but no one else knows that because I'm not faculty. He loved all the thoughts and ideas that he entertained. So I say that long path to tell you that I've been thinking about some of these ideas that I'll unfold tonight for a very long time. That's what I'm telling you. Like, part of me is so excited to have an audience who just can help me capture some of my thoughts. I'm actually unveiling new work that I had been thinking about for a while. So then I read a book one day when I'm working as a grants manager and just landed a $1 million grant for Howard, and it said, Doing Christian Ethics from the Margins. And I was like, this is profound. I think this is my next level. Like, I'm like, this is the next level. And I do what many of you done, and I email this author, and I said to my dean, I said, I think he's one of the best ethicists in the country. I should go find him. I had to check him out. And you have to know, a lot of this is April. I'm telling you about April, not just Dr. Mack, right? So I said, I need to go check him out. I need to make sure he's as good in person as he is on paper. So I packed up 2 kids and 2 bikes and a cat, and we drove to Denver in 2012. It's just a funny story because I had already talked to this professor who still works here, and the author is Miguel de la Torre, and we had a conversation, and I said, I want to get a doctorate in ethics, and he said, no, you don't. That's the right? And he cuts right out the gate. He says, no, you don't. And I said, why not? And he said, because there's no money in it. And I was like, I'm like, but I still want the doctorate, right? And I'm still doing that. So he doesn't know that I'm going to do what I'm doing, which was pack up and come out here. He never knew. And I tell this story only because I told you there's a lot of divine providence in some of this. And we came, and I came as a special student because I didn't need another master's, right? Everybody follow me, right? So I came as a special student for the summer. I took some classes, and Dr. Kennard, shout out to Jacob Kennard. I teach world religions now. I'll get into that in a minute, but I took that. And I sat in Dr. de la Torre's classroom for about 3 weeks. It was ethical analysis and advocacy, which I now teach with him. We both teach that class. And I sat there for 3 weeks, and I checked him out. That's what I did. I was checking him out. You don't want to do a doctorate or not. Some of you get that, okay? You want to know who you're going to be pretty much spending a lot of time with. So I told him who I was, and he just had this blank look. He said, the lady from Maryland? And I said, yep, that's me. I wasn't in the doctoral program yet. I was just coming to check him out, remember? So I check him out, and I go, I think I'm going to apply. What you think? He said, you should apply. So then I got in officially to the doctoral program in 13-14, so academic year 2013-2014. So I was here in these walls for a year before I actually became a doctoral student. Why do you need to know that? Well, hold the thought, okay? So the idea is I have these credentials. What does it mean? Let me see which one I can look at. So I did get the doctorate here with the JDP. That's the Joint Doctoral Program. And I'm a scholar of religion on paper. So the doctorate is in religion and theological studies at the time. It's changed here, some of the concentrations with the JDP. And this is how I self-identify. A decolonial Black feminist scholar of religion and theoethicist concerned with ethics related to complex social issues, structural inequality, and holistic justice for flourishing for Black Americans and marginalized Americans more broadly, and how about this, and Americans in general, okay? So I see it as multi-layered, but I left it there. And that's important because I decided not to grapple with African American issues today, because I see a more pressing complex social issue, I'm good. And that complex social issue kind of involves this idea of the construction or misconstruction of this term called religion. Okay, so I'm going to take my time because some of this is like, yeah, I've been thinking about some of this for a long time, and I'm bringing you along on my journey before I set you up for the work that you have to do. Yeah, you got a little exercise to do while we're here. And my students know I'm usually getting you somewhere before I want you to get. Okay, everybody's, the few that know me are shaking their heads. So you got to follow. I'm setting you up, and then when we get to where I want to land, you'll know. Okay. So this becomes important because Angela Davis is one of my just premier. I thought I was going to do a doctorate with her. So you didn't know that I hosted her at Syracuse, and it was long and arduous, but I would have to move to California, and I wasn't willing to do that. At the time, she was the History of Consciousness program there in California. It was just a lot. Couldn't move to California. But she's one of my premier thinkers as a black feminist. Why is that important? Because I don't identify as a womanist. For those of you who know what womanism is the study of religions at all by and for black women. And that's a nuance that I need you to understand. I do womanist work, but I'm not a womanist scholar. I identify this way within the academic discourse of religion. One of the reasons I think and believe that I am in the right discipline is because my work has become and always was multidisciplinary. The way I ask questions and the way I want to solve questions or complex questions is multidisciplinary or polymethodic, meaning I'm going to use many methods to explain and talk about what I want to talk about. And then I'm going to use many disciplines, academic disciplines, the humanities, the social sciences. Obviously, they're different parts of those two streams of thought. But there are some, history, sociology, psychology, blah, blah, blah. And that becomes important because one of the first questions, I'm a whiteboard person, I can't resist myself, I'm sorry. We're my students, right? I can't resist myself. She always has a whiteboard. So what I think is the beauty, I'm biased, but of having an MTS or being in a different strain of thought, meaning as an academic related to the issues of religion and faith, it's a different stream of thought for me. Let me do my disclaimer. I am a Christian. I identify as a Christian. I am ordained. I'm ordained in a non-denominational Protestant tradition. And I have my own relationship with what I consider to be religion, the divine, and et al. But that's not this. Somebody just shake their head so I know, okay, good. So when you are in this space, do you need this word to do what I'm about to do? Do I need that to talk to you tonight? Okay, good. But most of my students know that's a trick. So you don't need any faith tradition to do what we're about to do. You don't need to be in one because that might be part of what we talk about, but you don't need that to engage with the ideas that I'll present today. Do you get that? Okay, good. So this is important. Why so? Because this, I hope this gets to the internet audience, is part of what I want to talk about, and it may inform what we talk about, but this isn't what we're talking about. Let's see who's paying attention. You get it? Okay, good. My students know me, so I'll just, right? So this becomes important as I set you up, okay? In the academic study of religion, there's no definition, right? And if you teach undergrads, they're going to ask you, how are we defining religion, Dr. Mack? And I'm going to be like, we don't do that word, right? We don't use that per se. I'm going to say it 100 times, but religion in the academic space is a construct, a constructed category, a constructed discipline, such that I'm teaching a course to the PhD students in the fall, and they'll be the new PhD students, and it's called Theories and Methods. It's one of the first classes you have to take as a doctoral student. And it's kind of in that, how do we define, right? Define religion wheelhouse. And I'm going to talk about all these theories that scholars of religion have used. And then I'm going to give them methods, so it's both and. And if you teach it well, students learn a lot of different ways to talk about religion. So we won't do the doctoral work, but I certainly want you to understand that there are 4 constructions of this category called religion that I got to share with you before we get to what I want to talk about. Everybody following me? Okay, good. So religion is a construct. It's a construction, meaning it's put together. Let me do this other one. Race is a construct. Everybody got that? Similar thing, right? Okay, good. I just got to follow the heads. That becomes important to remember. If it's constructed, that means there are parts to it, correct? And pieces. And one of the things that we do as college, professors of religion is we give you a lot of constructs so you can develop a method to use to explain and write about what we ask you to do. Do you get that? Part of the work of a student is to understand what the tool is and then how to use the tool. All right, my students should at least be shaking their heads so that I can, right? Because they know how I set them up. So there's a theorist, his name is Michael Malloy, and people will see this if you're online, they'll drop a link to his book. But this is the world religions hat that I'm coming from. If I didn't say it, I've taught world religions maybe 7 years, over 3 institutions, and never thought about it until I was asked to teach it. But teaching world religions, I know I'm going to say this so I can ruffle some feathers, no worry, I'll bring you back, made me a better Christian. Okay, good. It got real quiet in here, though. The idea that I can think outside of my own faith tradition is the work you do in the academic space, or at least I do with my students, okay? And what I do as the professor of religion and social justice. Well, you might be like, well, whose religion, right? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Whose religion? How do we define it? What religion? Stay with me. So there's this one theorist, his name is Michael Malloy, and he has this construct, and he says construction. He says if you have at least 3 of these 8, he's going to call them a characteristic of religion. You have religion. Religion is present. Do you get that? If 3 or more are linked together, religion is present, or this idea of religion. I think I don't have the rush. So a community, a belief system of some sort. What we're going to call central myths, don't worry, we'll return to Malloy, I promise. So I'm going to do some and leave it. This idea of a central myth, okay, myth, we'll drill down on these particularly throughout the presentation. Ritual, ethics, characteristics of emotional experiences, material expression, and sacredness. So I need you to follow because I'm going to be real nuanced and it's going to annoy some of you and other people will be like, oh my God, I love her, right? So I'm saying that to say it's sacredness. It's not sacred. I know, we got to do some of that. And then it's characteristics of this, emotional experiences. So religion is not philosophy. It's not the discipline of philosophy, in fact. Do you get that? Yeah, it's actually a different academic discipline. And so if you're not in the academy and if you're didn't do undergrad, so this 6 makes it something else. It's not philosophy. It allows for some unexplainable, some emotions. You get, okay, everybody smiling? Just, okay, good, I'm checking in. So that's Michael Malloy, all right? We'll return to Malloy. And I love Malloy's construction. If my students or some of them may have seen this from last week, because I'm still in that headspace. And there's another scholar, say his name is Ninian Smart, and if you notice, there's certain nuances that are similar, but Smart is doing something else. He's giving different, he's going to call them parts and pieces of his construct. But you will see it includes some level of the sacred. It allows for this, what I just talked about, right? This idea of philosophical. It allows for this. So this is a different part that we didn't see over in Malloy, right? It's ethics is still there. This idea of ritual is still here. experiential, and then social and material. So you see some overlap for sure, correct? But you see new pieces of the construct, which will be doctrinal. And everybody United Methodist go. All right, and everybody Baptist go. Everybody just, all right, so you get that? Yeah, this was a different construct, but it also goes with this, right? The social and the doctrinal. If you're paying attention, you should see that there's different parts of this construct as Smart sees it. And Smart's going to say that these all work together. Everybody's following? So that's number 2, Smart's construct of religion. There's another theorist, his name is Jeffrey Broad, and these links are in the chat if you're following me on the chat, and I link you to all this. And this PowerPoint will be made available at the end, I promise. And Jeffrey Broad's going to construct his construct of religion through 3 guiding questions. These are the questions, and they are important questions. What is ultimate reality? It didn't say what is the ultimate reality. It says what is ultimate reality. Like I told you, it's nuanced. His second question in the construct, how should we live in this world? Who's the we? We, you individually, you societally, you communally. So it's a big we, but that's an ethical question. And this is where we're going to spend some time. But how should we live in the world? Based on your ultimate reality. Like what, Dr. Mack? I'm glad you asked. An ultimate reality, if you're a Christian, you believe you're going to return to your Creator. Where's that going to be? You can talk this way. Yeah. There's this ultimate reality that I'm embodied, but I return somewhere. That this experience is one part of my self, and my self is going to end up somewhere else, if I'm good. And I don't want to do that binary, but certainly there's an afterlife of some sort. That's your ultimate reality. You following me? This one's a little different, okay? It should feel different. How do we live in this world? I just did that individually, communally, and socially. And finally, what is our ultimate purpose? So that is the collective. I don't want to drill down on that one right now. Everybody's good? Right, these constructs of religion, did you see this word in any of the constructs? Why not? Somebody talk to me. Why didn't we see this word in any of the constructs? This never came up, did it? Okay, we'll see. What about this word? Did we see that in any of the constructs? Nope. So there's some level of the academic study of religion that allows for those 2 words. We'll talk about that. But they're not necessarily the words that we're going to use to define what's going on all the time. I'm trying to be real concerted in my words. Some of us do this every day. And other people look, I need to bring you along. You get that? Yeah, there's this idea that there are a lot of people in the world who don't even think in those terms. They do something else with their belief system and approach to the world, such that these 3 guiding questions, if I was teaching you ultimate reality, world religions course, I'd be talking about 10 religions through this construct. I would take you through indigenous, they call it religion, but there's a lot there. Indigenous, and then Hinduism, and then Buddhism, and then I'd do a lot of Eastern traditions, like Sikhism and all these other isms in the Eastern traditions. And then we'd get to monotheism, and we'd use the same questions to talk about each religion. So let's do some of that, okay? Everybody just shake their head. Okay, good. All right, I forgot I got one more construct. And so Bruce Lincoln is important for our thoughts. This is your 4th construct. Because Bruce Lincoln says, just based on his title, he writes a book. I'm sorry I don't have the year here. But it's post 9/11, and this is the title, Holy Terrors, Thinking About Religion. Somebody tell me what the rest of that says. Come on. After September 11th. And Bruce Lincoln does a lot of good work, but this is an important book, or it was in the academic study of the religion, because he's kind of like, hey folks, hey guild, hey folks, we need to think about religion differently after this event. We can do some of that in Q&A. But this idea that he still keeps certain ideas. He's going to give you 4 tenets A discourse with concerns. I'm not reading these, so I'm not reading because we're not reading over slides. I got a lot to do, but a discourse with concerns that transcend the human. There's a lot there. A set of practices. A community whose members construct their identity. Do you get that? Well, if it's a community that constructs its identity, well, that's us tonight. We can do that, right? When we have these great services, sometimes we call ourselves Iliffians. Where am I, right? That's an identity, correct? Can everybody claim that? No. It's an identity related to a specific community. I'm in that community, okay? So some of these words or tenets are not inherently religious in and of themselves. None of it, like, they're not owned by religion, right? This idea of community. And then finally, this one, which is a little different, an institution that does something specific. Like what? That regulates religious discourse. And everybody denominational, again, should say, okay, good, and I'm going to let y'all do that work. Because I'm a non-denominational Christian for a reason. I have certain reasons I didn't want to be in certain institutions, but that's another story, okay. 4 constructs. Malloy. What's the next one? Let's see who's paying attention. Smart. Broad. Good. Lincoln. I told you I was going to just do it like I'm teaching and it won't feel so. Yeah, so you've got these 4 constructs. Everybody's good? All right, good. I can tell you this stuff because I mentioned I'm a Christian, so I can use some Bible, correct? I'm a theoethicist, so the theology I might pull from it, occasionally, sometimes, not, maybe not others, is from a text. In my tradition, it's called the Bible, both Old and New Testament, so I'm just giving you some stats, as they say. The word hope appears in the Bible between 129 and 182 times. It appears in both the Old and New Testament. It's not news necessarily, anybody. But the King James Version mentions hope 126 times. The word hope is frequently used in these books, not exclusively, but the book of Psalms, Proverbs, and the major prophets. The word hope appears both as a noun and a verb. We'll get back to that. And then this idea, the word hope is included in a triad, which means what? How many? Good. A triad of great qualities in 1 Corinthians 13:13. So hold on to that. We'll revisit that. So I'm telling you that this word hope is part of the belief system that I'm a part of, but I'm going to argue that you need hope as well. You need hope. It doesn't matter where you fall in the traditions. I'm going to help you find this hope, and you don't know, you probably just don't identify what I'm going to talk about as hope. Because I'm going to talk about hope, the noun. I know. Let me do that. Why do I say that? Because Dr. Mack is a wordsmith. Where are my students? So I was like, yeah. So meaning I'm going to use a lot of words, right? And I'm going to make sure we drill down and spend time on making sure we all know what we're talking about and have some agreement, or you'll know how I'm using the term. That makes sense? So my argument is partly that we're misusing a term called religion, or it's been co-opted. And there's a lot of ways to do it. We'll do that in Q&A. I can't wait to hear your thoughts, okay? And that hope is more the issue, or the lack thereof, and we need to find some more hope, and we'd have a different looking society, all right? Remember, I'm an ethicist, and I ask different kinds of questions. I'm not asking about your theology or your doctrine. Everybody follow me? I know that's why I got to go slow, because some of this is going to be really hard to unfold. So there's hope in my tradition. But there are other ways. Let me talk about the major traditions, at least through some of the constructs, so you can hear how the constructs work. Well, I'm going to tell you that in Judaism, this is Broad's construct, the ultimate reality is the God of the Torah. I know, I just want to just show you how the constructs work before I just go running down the road. I want to go run, but I got to get you there. And that in the Torah, God, or Yahweh, if you know any Old Testament, right, is going to be transcendent yet immanent. almighty, benevolent, yet just. These are characteristics of what we know to be the God of the Old Testament. It's the God, I'm going to say it at times so I can get people a little further than the he, she thing in religion, okay? But this idea that Creator God, or Yahweh, is the sustainer of what it created. I'm going to make sure some of this land. Creator God in Judaism is part of their ultimate reality. And that this God that they believe in, or Jewish people, is revealed in the Torah being the first 5 books of the Bible, Old Testament. Everybody follow me? So that's how you would look at a religion through Jeffrey Broad's 3 questions. I'm just dealing with one. What is ultimate reality? There's Judaism. Let's do another one. Christians believe some level of these 3, this idea of one God in 3 manifestations. That's the word. You can say one God in 3 persons, but that's church. I don't want to do that. You get that? That's why I'm saying a different word. I just told you I'm a wordsmith. I said one God in 3 what? Manifestations. Okay, I don't want to drill down how much is Christianity. I couldn't see that. Okay. So the Christians believe some level of a triune God, this one God in 3 manifestations. There's this part of the manifestation that became flesh. His name was Jesus. And then that Jesus died on a cross. His bodily self died on a cross. And as far as the academic study of religion is, that's the end of the historical Jesus, the death on the cross. After the death of the cross, or of this man on a cross, it's the theology of the religion. Everybody's following me? Good. And then Christians will call that a resurrection. There's a lot of theology there. I'm not doing that tonight. But just another construction and how you would use it. There's Christianity. I got to get going. You can do another monotheistic tradition. There you go. If you're a person in a faith called Islam, this is your belief system. 5 parts, and they're called pillars. Now, if you're a wordsmith, you'd want to know, right? What's a pillar? Let's see who's paying attention. What's a pillar? Yeah, it's going to be strong, correct? And it's going to hold up. Undergird, be the foundation, the main parts, non-negotiables. Everybody good? All right, right. So Judaism, in a nutshell. I'm going to talk about this one. If you're a Hindu, you're doing some level of these. It's as individual as you are. It's as individual as your community is. But if you're a Hindu, you're going to have a synthesis of things you do, including use certain texts. There's a good number of I got a few, the Vedas, the Bhagavad Gita, the Upanishads. You would do some of that, but these other things are just as important. Do you get it? Hindus, it's a synthesis to live in the world. You get it? So using broad, right, it's a practical way to live in the world. It's not, so that's how we're using that construction. Everybody follow it? Okay. All right, let's do this one because this one's fun. This one, Buddhism, which is fascinating because it'll get us where I want to go. I always put this slide up so students can decide by the time I'm finished teaching it what they want to call Buddhism. And Buddhism allows for these, meaning there's a lot there. I won't stay on that slide because I got a lot of Buddhism. And in Buddhism, what becomes important to understand is Buddha is not God. Buddha does not function like God, Father God, or Jesus does in Christianity, so I don't want you to do that. Buddha is part of what's going to be called the jewels of Buddhism. If you have these 3 things, you have Buddhism. 3 things. 3. There's going to be a lot. The Buddha himself, and the Buddha is someone we're going to, there's the word, imitate. Everybody following? This becomes important, right? I didn't say worship, I said imitate. So the Buddha himself, the total of the Buddhist teachings of what did the Buddha teach us, all right? It's going to be called the Dharma, big D Dharma. And then this Sangha idea, which is the community of monks and nuns, that are set aside for this tradition. And you'd say, if you're a Buddhist, you take refuge in these three things. If I have these three, these are my pillars, one could say, but they're called jewels here. But you follow it. I know, because when I speed up. And then 3 again in Buddhism. Why is that important? 3 again. There's going to be part of Buddhism that's going to give you a bunch of stuff or a bunch of doctrine that's going to give you ideas about impermanence, the existence of suffering, and this idea of a no self. And so Buddhists will go in. They don't go out. My religion is to become a better me. Religion in quotes, right? My belief system tells me to do this, to empty myself of myself. So there you go. This idea is called a doctrine of no self in Buddhism. All right? And your self is made up of these 5 things. That's how Buddhists will construct themselves. And there's a lot there. It's a beautiful tradition. All right? This concept of a no self. But then Buddhists have this as well. It's more doctrine. Right, this idea of these 4 noble truths, and some of you may see these as familiar if you've ever been a part of NA or AA. These are similarly constructed in that everyone could use these. These are universal. They've moved outside of Buddhism on some level. Everybody following me? All right, good. And then finally, this one, which I'm trying to get to. I don't know if we did this well. But this idea that another teaching of the Buddha is to do this. You're part of the note to work through in your embodied self these 8 things. And there's a lot of theology or doctrine with each of these. But they're not steps. Do you notice that? They're all happening at one time. You gotta tell me what time. All right? And guess what? The Noble Eightfold Path is constructed as a prescription. So if I tell you something's a prescription, how often do you do it? Yeah, as needed, certainly, but as prescribed. You got that? If I tell you something's a prescription, then it's necessary and you need to do it, right? Yeah, it's a prescription. It's different. It's not saying, oh, this is theology, and it's a nice idea to love your neighbor as yourself. Remember, I'm a Christian, so I can poke fun at Christianity because I'm a Christian. How about this? So Christians, it might look like I just gave a lot of doctrine for Buddhism, but guess what? You should love your neighbor as yourself. What else? You might learn the Beatitudes. You might know the Lord's Prayer. Didn't I just name a bunch of stuff, right? New Testament, certainly, but let's do the Old. You should know the 10 Commandments if you're a Christian, right, or a Jew. Same idea, but I just showed it to you in Buddhism. Everybody following? All right, good. This is important that you understand that the idea is what construct you're using to talk. So when I was teaching about what you want to talk about, so when I was teaching undergrads, I love undergrads, and I did some of this early on. They've got to do 2 weeks of what is religion. They said, when are we going to have the Mack construct of religion? I just lost it. That's why some part of me that's like, you would have to know I got tears in my eyes today. Well, guess what? Yeah, I know I got to take you where I want you to go. So this is the first time I've ever put this to paper. And it's part of your work as hope to find it. And I'm going to tell you. Many methods, many disciplines. Religion is what? Polymethodic and multidisciplinary. I'm using math to bring you into the construct. All right, because I roll like that. You get it? I know. And I love that I got this audience because you'll help me think this through. I'm never going to tell you I'm a mathematician. But the little I remembered about algebra. You have an x plus, I'm saying 3 y's are going to equal z. Your x can be a 0. Your y cannot. Your z cannot be a 0. And it also must be constant and it must be infinite. I know. I was hoping I got one student I wanted to... Where are my math people? How'd I do? All right, keep listening. I know I don't want to go through this quick. Let's do another one because I'm a wordsmith, so I had to do it in words too. You're going to have a preposition plus 3 nouns. It's going to equal a verb. I know, Dr. Mack, because I could roll like that. I'm giving you 2, but I need for those who can see it through math and the people who can see it through words. I know. I appreciate the people who don't stay where they're looking at me like, what is she doing? I know, that's why it's a lot. How about I'm giving you your X, Y, and Z? There they are. Everybody getting a little more comfortable. Everybody's getting nervous at first. Like, what is she doing? I'm a Christian. I've already told you that. And I'm going to use part of my Christian understanding from this particular scripture. Many of you should know it. And that's your X, Y, and Z. Remember, I'll go back to some of these. And so here's the scripture. And so, it's from the Amplified version. Faith, hope, and love abide. If you have never read an Amplified, they do the bracket. Faith being a conviction and belief respecting man's relationship to God and divine things. Did we get that? To what? To the God and what? So it means other divine things. You should find. Hope being a joyful and confident expectation of eternal salvation. Love being a true affection for God and man, growing out of God's love for and in us. But the greatest of these is which one? Yeah, this idea that love, that's your last one, right, is the greatest. I didn't say it, the text said it. Okay, we following? All right, good. So let's look at it. I know I do a lot. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. There's some people that look like. All right, so this idea, this is the construction layered, all right? I've got the terminology now. This is where we're going. You and I need to do this. I want us to do this. We're solving for why tonight. Yeah, I know there's some people in the front. Everybody remember? This is, Z is a praxis. I'll have to go back to that slide. But we just said that this wasn't necessary. There we go. Remember this? That's why I left it up there. Didn't we just say that wasn't, right? Everybody got that? All right, good. I'm doing good. So the idea is that as we proceed, and I give you some way we drill down on the whys, and I'm telling you, you need 3 of them. Jeffrey Broad is going to say 3 of those things, right, in his construct are necessary, or that if you have 3, just like Buddhism, Sangha, right, Dharma, Buddhism, 3. So 3, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. How am I doing, guys? 3, okay? So you need 3 markers of hope. Okay, that's what we're doing. But we just said this wasn't necessary, so I need you to table that. I need you to understand that this could be bracketed. I'm getting there. I know some of you are probably. So what is a religious ethic? Why is mine a religious ethic as opposed to a construction of religion? Well, I'm an ethicist. Ethics is a discipline that asks different questions. I've been saying that. And it has this term, it's called a praxis within ethics, and I'm defining it here for you. The good old dictionary, an action, a praxis, such as, 1, an exercise of practice, in art, science, or skills. A customary practice or conduct, meaning you're doing something. It's your verb. Did you remember that? It's your verb. And it's a practical application. That's back to what? Everybody follow me? Which one had a practical synthesis? Hindus. Okay, good. All right, so that's a religious ethic because I'm an ethicist. There you go, I started there. This person that I came to work with because I said, oh, he's one of the best ethicists in the country, and he still is. But for part of this reason, and I know, and that's why I put that in there, this is AI generated. Your professor didn't say that. AI said this is Miguel. You just put in praxis definition, Miguel de la Torre. Let's see what it said. For Miguel de la Torre, praxis refers to lived, transformative action rooted in a critical understanding of power structures and social realities, particularly from the perspective of the marginalized, aimed at dismantling oppression and achieving liberation. How am I doing? People hanging in there? Very good. So part of Dr. De La Torre's work, who's my mentor, that's why I want you to, this is the only picture I've ever had with him. This was just last year. So part of me working with Miguel produced what you're seeing now, a constructive ethic to do certain things. He's got a lot of ethics for the margins. Embracing hopelessness, that's part 2 of this, so we're not even doing that today. But this idea that you're going to construct a way to think about things. All right, so we did that. So now you need 3 nouns, or you need 3 X's. How we doing? Let's see how the room is doing. There's the ethic. I'm going to show you 8 things, and I want you to pull out 3, and I'm going to tell you how to get there. You got it? All right, good. So I want you to look at that one as well. I know. So it's hope, the noun. It's hope you can point to, hope that has some tangible reality in this realm, in the earth realm. And you're gonna go, oh, I didn't think about it like that. Well, thank you for taking my class. There it is again. Right? There it is. Right. So there's the ethic. So I got to tell you a story so you know how I came to this. I've been thinking about it, but last March, I lost my grandmother. And I've said this publicly, so, and there's just so much there. But I didn't struggle here. When she left this earth realm, she was 98. I couldn't hold her forever. But I haven't been the same. But I noticed my faith wasn't struggling necessarily. Who's following me? That's why I got to make sure people know where I'm going. Yeah, it wasn't my faith necessarily. It was this. It was me waking up every day saying, I like, Lord, I can't. Right? Like this, like, when the screen goes black and white from a color, right? And so when I had to grapple, that's why we're doing markers and we're still grappling, right? We're just in a different wheelhouse with it. But every day I had to find this, like literally still. As someone who is dealing with grief, I was like, okay, wait a minute. And so I had this moment, and I could tell you that this is something, but one day I was reading something and it said, the Lord is my light and salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is my strength, the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And I was like, that's hope. There you go. There you go, April. You do this 100 times. Maybe it never hit you before, but that psalm, and my daughter knows this, that's the psalm. That's the psalm I won at my funeral. But it hit me differently because I was looking for something. I know, I'm talking about my own journey. You'll find yours. You should be thinking already, because I'm going to tell you 3 of mine. And then one day, my nephew and my sister are here, and they visited us in Thanksgiving weekend of last year, and they're in the sensory room. My nephew's on the spectrum, but I had never met him before. He's already 3. I had not met my nephew. And him showing up was like, you know how when you put the things on the paddles on your heart, when you see the medicine, right? When you're having and it was like, oh, like this jolt of life again. I was like, oh, what? And it was like he just brought the hope back into my life. And I have the teenager in the back, but one day, and we do this, it was like best memory of 2024. And I was like, all I remember about 2024 is my grandmother died. And she said, but Mom, and she gave me, right, all these experiences I had continually forgot about. I literally could not remember last year other than, I just couldn't. I'm just telling you about my own journey. And so when I read the 27 and I got the paddles, right, and then I met my nephew, right, and it was like, ooh, like these are coming, like so, this is different. This is not this. This is not, because I know some of this. I know how to live out my faith. I'm not a new Christian. But I was missing a tenet, arguably, that I'm still finding. And so my nephew's my second embodied noun. His name is August. You know, April the aunt, August the child. So you got Psalm 27 for me, my nephew August, and then I'm going to show you these keys, this set of keys, that you don't know is the keys to my grandmother's home. And one day I was holding the keys when my sister visited, and she's like, I gotta give August his toy because he needs something in his hand to go to sleep. And I said, and I went like this to my sister, and she's like, what is that? And I said, these are grandma's keys. And she said, do you have keys to grandma's house? I said, I've always had keys to grandma's house. And these keys represents for me all that is good about home. All that is good about being April Mack, who was a granddaughter when she entered this planet. You get some of this? You see what I'm saying? So these keys, when I gave them to August, August and I tell you, we had a visitation. Some of y'all can hear it, and others can't. But when it was me and August, we both had the things in our hand, and we fell asleep. I kid you not, I knew my grandmother was in that room. And so this idea of hope and me finding it, I need to stress that. This is how the title came to me. I didn't know that they were hope, 3 nouns, keys, August, Psalm 27. I didn't identify them to be hope until literally, I'm telling you now, as a scholar of a religion, you need 3 things. You need at least 3 things that are going to make you get up and do what? Do this better. This is your praxis. This one. Because really I care about Y and Z. I don't know that I care as much about how you frame X. X may inform Y and Z, but it's not what I'm after. Can everybody hear that? Yeah, because there's going to be a lot of this. But we just told you we're not doing faith. That's your church, mosque, family, community of persons that develop you in that. I'm not after that. I'm after these 2. Who's following me? And I got to get you places I'm trying to go. Yeah, this becomes important when you look at the constructs and when you look at what do you want people to do. I want them to act better in the world. That's what I want them to do. That's what I care about. I care about Jeffrey Broad's second question that says, how do we live in this world? What makes you get up and be better? What makes you get up and be different in the world because you identify something as hope? And you take it out of some tradition that may have it so clouded that you don't see hope anymore. Because you listen to too much news, April Mack, and I do. And I realized that it wasn't going to be some out there that was going to give it to me. I need you to hear this. It wasn't going to be a party. It wasn't going to be a president. It wasn't going to be some of that. It was going to be what I just buckled down and decided got me out of the bed. Okay, let me just not do that. So here's your, because everybody's looking at me. Yeah, so a belief system. It's several beliefs. If I was have more time, I would show you how your beliefs have a systematic way that you interpret the world. If you're a Christian, you're going to be formed a certain way. Christianity is a system. That's my doctoral work. I can't do that here. But it's going to help you interpret the universe and the individual's place in it. Get going. Community as a second part of what I'm saying is a marker. What communities give you life, give you that paddle, right? Where's my last Monday folks? Got a couple here that were in last Monday when the students put together a service in the chapel to begin gathering days. And I stood up and we were just having a conversation, but I said, today, this was my hope. You didn't know I was doing that. She led the service. Today, I'm just grateful for a place called Iliff. Today, this community is my hope. Last week, last Monday, this community was my hope, were my keys, were my reason. I know, I'm going to give you these quick. And you can read some of this. But this idea within the academic tradition that uses a term called myth, it's not the myth you think, it's meaning the stories that of the religious beliefs of a group told and often reenacted. Examples, let's do that, of the major events of this Hindu god named Krishna. Some of you may not know. The enlightenment experience of the Buddha. The Buddha's not the Buddha. He becomes the Buddha. He's a man in time called Siddhartha. And he becomes the supreme enlightened one. That's why I don't want you to relate Buddha to Jesus, because they don't work the same way. It's a different function in a different religion. Okay, the Buddha's not divine. And then this another myth, as we would call it, the Exodus for the Israelites in Egypt. The death, I just told you that, and resurrection of Jesus. You notice that? Not just the death, but this resurrection that makes it a belief as opposed to a historical event. I know I'm going slow with this one. All right, and then it says, or Muhammad, if you don't know the story of the prophet Muhammad, but his escape from Mecca to Medina. So in the academic study, we call them myths, central myths, because they're central to the belief system. But guess what? They're true to the believers. You and I don't need to believe them. We're not asked to either. If you're an outsider to a tradition, you don't need the central myth. You're an outsider. Do you get some of that? Yeah, they're true. The stories that people need to stay in their traditions are part of the markers of hope, a central myth. And then this one, it's not inherently religious because you absolutely can have rituals that are secular. I hate to use that word, but rituals that remind you to be you. Let's do that. Every day at the same time I do, you fill in the blank. It's not an inherently religious word. I know some people who are religiously ritualistic, not related to religion. Do you get that? Let's see. Do you get some of that? So this word isn't inherently religious, but there's certainly beliefs. You do them for a reason, and then they're made real in some way. It says ceremony, but made real means I do stuff. Let me give you a really bad one, but I'll tell it myself. So I used to work for the feds. I told you that in D.C., and if you're in D.C. like it is now, this might make more sense because the D.C. is such a mess. But at that time in my career working in D.C., they call it the Beltway. It just means inside the Beltway. Whatever's going on around the Beltway, you kept up with because usually your jobs depended on it. No pun intended. So what's going on now makes true sense to this. But every day at 5:30, I was watching the world news. I know I'm old. I already told you that. There was no internet. This was when I worked for right? There's no internet. There was barely CNN. I remember when CNN started. But it wasn't a 24-hour news cycle yet. I already told you I'm older than I look, so that's why I got to date myself. There's no MSNBC, Fox yet. Not just yet. Everybody listening? Just I'm dating myself. But so you got on the world news, and the world news says, "Hi, this is Lester Holt." He's my favorite. And every day, this is NBC with Lester Holt. So every day, guess what? When I moved out of D.C., I watched Lester Holt at 5:30. I'm so anal, I didn't know I was supposed to stop necessarily. And I lived everywhere over to a lot of places in the country, and I kept watching this. And my daughter's like, "Mom," I'm like, "I'm with Lester." Just right. And don't do children at 5:30. I'm focused on something else. I get a half an hour. You got to hear me in my household. I get a half an hour to focus on something else. So a ritual, do you get it? As part of your hope, as part of your fabric. Let's do this one. We talked about ethics, but here's a good definition if you need one. Revealed from a supernatural realm, but they also can be, what's that next word? Let's see, you can read it. Socially generated ethics. That's just too much to do tonight, but I need you to hold on to ethics, okay? Then this one we've talked a little bit about. Oh, now, okay. And so here, characteristics, we talked about this, of emotional experiences. You're allowed. Your markers allow for the space for you to have emotions, including these bad ones. I'm going to say bad, but I don't want to. But dread, guilt, awe, mystery, devotion. This idea of rebirth. I'm no longer a granddaughter in the earth realm, but I'm an aunt and a sister. And there's some ashes that became a rebirth for me. Okay, good. People follow me. And this one. So this idea that you can use stuff or stuff have meaning outside of maybe a tradition. Are these keys divine? No. But they're sacred to me. And so my marker of material expression can include something, a something. Do you get it? I burn a lot of incense and I do some all this stuff, but material expression. My Bible is sacred to me. It's not just a text. I've had this Bible since I was like 14. And if it's important, it made it to the Bible. If it was important in my life, it made it to this Bible. You may have something similar. But this idea you're going to deem something that seemed ordinary as your marker of hope for this reason. It becomes sacred. It is the hope that you now identify differently than before. And so the academic study of religion, this is Jeffrey Broad. He's going to try to balance out these two things. A healthy balance between the perspective of the insider versus the outsider of a tradition. There's going to be great empathy. It's going to say for seeing things from another person's perspective. That's why I gave you a lot of perspectives. So that's how he kind of codes, how he sets up. Remember, Broad had 3 questions. What is ultimate reality? How do we live in this world? What is our ultimate purpose? And he's going to finish with this thought, and this is where I'll finish. Jeffrey Broad's going to say, whatever one thinks is a religion is, these are his emphases, not mine. This much remains certain, a religion does. I would argue a religion has praxis. Your hope is the gas to your praxis. Your praxis must be love. This fact is closely related to the challenge of defining religion. I just gave you 4 constructs, including my own. Did we ever decide what religion is? No, we're solving for Y to help us get to Z, which is love. And when we do our own Ys, we can live into the Z, and we can do that collectively. I know, I got a lot of funny people, but I'm done. There you go. So, all right, I so appreciate everyone entertaining me. I take the long route because I was trying to really get people to be thoughtful. Micah, I'm going to go back. Yeah, if you just put it back, I'll change. I was trying to be thoughtful to get people who don't do this every day. Some of us, come on, students, we do this often enough. Y'all could follow me. But somebody else, I know Karen's watching the time, and she'll tell me when to stop. But I'm taking questions. I'm taking questions here. All right, I'm going to go to the lady in pink. Yes. Just state your name if you don't mind. Tell us who you are. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get the one. I want to agree with you. There's absolutely evil. I just told you I'm a Christian, so I don't discount that evil is there. For me, evil is here in how it should be explained because different traditions will explain it differently. The idea that these people, they're not the experts, they're just better at it. Let me do another one. The reason this started with the African American experience as part of when they, put it up, is because my argument, we're just better at this. I know I didn't ask you to agree with me. I'm telling you what I think. Why? Because I know in our embodied selves, we've just been finding hope longer than a lot of people, a lot of other marginalized community. I didn't mean better that we get it right, but better that we're always grappling with it. Do you get what I'm saying? That is part of the milieu of being black. I'm just saying. Right? That there's this every day I'm going to find it because the world didn't give it to me. The world may not acknowledge my humanity. The world is not going to affirm my child. So I have to every day be like really pounding away at what is the hope that I live for. And it can't be in who's in the White House. And it can't always, ask this new generation, be coded in some of this. Yes, there's evil. I think faith communities, I struggle with that. My class, God, Religion, and Violence, they have to do a whole section on evil. They do, trust me. Where's my folks? I go, okay, good. At least got 2 of them here. So it's not solved through hope, not that anything is, but you should be aware of it. That's why I think X is incredibly important, to form people in a way to understand that there may be dynamics at work that they don't control. That's what I think a lot of this is trying to do for people, and give them answers and give them it can inform hope, it doesn't solve it. So we struggle as people of faith. Whatever faith tradition you're in, you should address evil, but I think it belongs in the X category. Thank you so much. Yeah, here. Okay. Yes. Oh, gosh. Yeah, look at Robert. Mm. Yeah. Mm. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that question. You know, I'm struggling with it, so let me say that, right? I don't want to do this around all that I was saying, African American, all of that it was put out initially. I wanted to do this more personal. I wanted you to have a why that matters to you, or 3 nouns, right? Your 3 whys. When I mean here, not WHY, but this why. I want you to at least grapple with what some of them are for you personally, because I don't know that anything external to you will be salvific right now. I'm going to use that intentional language. I think that your rituals have to be created, and this is a good time to find new ones. He mentioned some, but you should certainly grapple with finding new ones. And you should find them and then hope to do them in community and strengthen your inner fortitude as yourself that's becoming in a new manifestation of Americanhood, whatever we want to call it. I'm going to be nice, so I still got to be nice for another 20 minutes. If that helps, I hope so. Thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, go ahead. I mean, uh-huh. Well. Yeah. Well, I said Iliff was my hope. Yeah, that's why I want to be real careful as a wordsmith. I put it very clear that Iliff was my hope last Monday. It might not be today. But you get it? It's a grappling. It's not a, and she's a scientist, and so I want to say this to you. Yeah, let me do this work. Yes, your ex can be secular. I'm already out of time. I know I didn't want to do that work, but I just did a class. That's almost how I got here. Talking about this, God, religion, and violence. Last week on site, it was a good group, and we talked about, did we want to call, they got a bunch of stuff to do, I feel bad, but we're studying Waco, Timothy McVeigh, and the bombing of Oklahoma City as this triad. That's one case study. And then we're studying Mother Emanuel's shooting, if you don't know that one, with Dylan Roof, who's a white supremacist. Proud of it. They have to watch his confession, and he's saying, well, there's a race war happening. I had to go kill the enemy, which were black people in their church, okay, if you don't know that whole story. And so the students are really upset, and I'm upset with them. But the idea that that was true to him, Dylan Roof, made his actions look a certain way. His belief that there's a race war. And so white supremacy just kept coming up, and it certainly feels part of the 8 tenets per Malloy of what a religion is. And then I said, well, to the group, are we okay with calling white supremacy a religion as defined by this construct? Remember? And it was a slippery slope, right? I'm asking this group too. I said white supremacy, not white Christian nationalism, but you could do that work too. I'm not on that page, right? There's another class. But certainly these secular ideologies that go in X, that produce different kinds of Ys, that give us a different outcome. And sometimes that praxis is violence. I hope people are following me. Yeah, I'm going to go here in the front. Mm-hmm. Who said there's a difference? Yeah, that's exactly the class. Like, you should have been already, her partner's been in the class. Yeah, that's the work they're doing. How do we, what is the barometer? I'm sorry I can't do all that work today, but anybody's welcome to join, right, on this class we're doing. That we're teasing out, because guess what? The Branch Davidians believe they're fine. Leave us alone. They may be a sect, S-E-C-T, but they feel like they believe what they're believing. David Koresh knows the 7 seals. He's deeply in the end of this New Testament. You get that? So there's some part of what we want to be doing as academics, and there are 2 great articles I could refer you to that talk about the academic study of religion when we study those kind of phenomena. There are going to be others. Jonestown, we study that as scholars of religion right there, but what can we learn from these things? Because who's to say? Oh, won't even.
But he uses the thing of cult to say nobody joins a cult because of their dogma. They join because of the human connection, because of the community. And then a year later, they would go back and do post interviews with these people, and then a year later, they were saying the dogma. So that was never the initial.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand here and say Christianity is a cult, but it may have been thought of such as at one time, early Christianity. Okay, good. I gotta let that one lay. You know that. Yeah, go. Great question though. Go ahead, Dennis. Thanks. Yeah. I was waiting for you, Dennis. Don't worry. Go ahead, Dennis. I know he's. Let me see if I can. Oh no, it's not a 0. Oh, it said it cannot be a 0, meaning you could not have a nothing praxis. You don't get to be. Say that again. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So yes, y can equal z. 3 times y can equal 0. It can't equal 0 because you're not allowed in Dr. Mack's constructive ethic to do nothing. The praxis can never be 0. It has to be infinite in possibilities as much as there are fingerprints that are infinite in the number of, you get it? Yeah, that's a great question. I was waiting for you. If you don't know it, this is Dr. Delatore's student and one of my students, so he gets to ask these deeper ethics questions. Yeah. We'll do some. Yes, it is. I don't have my boxes. Go ahead, keep talking. Dennis is one of my students, so I'm going to do it. This is you. You're the box. You take your markers of hope. This is you. Remember, we did some Buddhism. This is you, you, Dennis. I know. Let me just do this quickly because I knew I had one. And then, Dennis, you're going to decide if you want to take you and attach it to a community. This is Dennis and community. Maybe this community. It could be any community. But this is going to be organized religion. And then you decide if you want to attach yourself to something, you get it? Maybe the 5 big ones or something else organized. But my argument is that you got to do this one, and then you decide this one. Most of my students don't want this. You get it? Most of my students don't want all that goes with this term called religion. Especially this young, right? But they absolutely want a community to attach themselves to. Absolutely. So yeah, absolutely 3 times y can be z. I love it. Thank you, Dennis. All right, good. I think I got to stop. I don't know. I don't know. All right, questions? If all hearts and minds are clear. Yes, sir. Three nouns of hope. For me, they're keys, August, Psalm 27. But okay, good. Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I haven't come up with what else. That's why I told you to stop. I don't have what Iliff. That's my other one. But that's my point. I want you to understand. You're going to run into them. Do you know why? That's why they're different. In this season of the world right now that we live in, I'm telling you, you need to find them. That's the title. You find them now. That's your work in the earth realm right now, because I said it. No, it's not. That's your work as a blah, blah, blah. However you form yourself in X. I'm after you finding 3 things that do this work, is my phrase. We got to do this work called love. We got to do this work like finding hope again. But you have to do it actively. August, he's around here somewhere. I think he's in the century. April and August. Yeah, and that becomes important. I want you to hear this as a timely word. It's timely. You have to find it. The White House is not going to give it to you. Your party's not going to give it to you. Your salary's not going to give it to you. How about that one? You're going to find it every day, and you'll know it when you find it. And if it's so important to you, you're going to tuck it away. I've got 8 numbers in here. You're going to tuck it away, and you're going to hold on to it. Does that make sense? Or I'm just totally my own grief I can't see anymore? Yeah, that's why it's work. That's why it's work. That's why there's a praxis. I'd like to think I didn't need to look at my life before because I said, this was enough. I'm a good Christian, and we all have, right? No, I didn't realize that the scripture said the greatest is love, but all 3 were needed. I'm going to stop there because I got Karen looking at me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah.
April, I'm looking at you because I stand amazed.
No.
This was wonderful.
Oh, my God.
This was absolutely wonderful. Her hope was actually going into that chapel and seeing her students in a worship service. Yeah. And my hope tonight is seeing all of you gathered here today in search of finding hope in what appears right now to be a hopeless situation. But there is hope. So as we go, please share your hope with someone, anyone nearby, that you have in leading this place. Be well.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm around if you want to come say hi, please. Thank you for joining me and entertaining me tonight.